As of the time I record this, Gundam Thunderbolt's two compilation movies have been off of YouTube for a day or two now. But when they were up, I watched them both in a single sitting and instantly fell in love, as have many Gundam fans. It's not hard to see why. You have the most heavily developed and widely praised Gundam timeline, the Universal Century, and you breathe a new type of life into it. See what I did there? It's not even the Universal Century we know. It's something with a much grittier, grimdark feel that original creator Yoshiyuki Tomino, mostly bound by super robot beats of his day, could have ever imagined from a narrative perspective. It's a version of the One-Year War and aftermath that fly in the face of everything we know about UC. Zeta, Double Zeta, Char's counterattack, and everything else might not even happen in this timeline, and if they do, they're not the same thing. There's no way to properly describe the experience of watching it. It's unlike any other Gundam story, even the equally gritty and musically driven Iron Blooded Orphans. The two even incorporate some of the same story beats, such as bodily mutilation and sacrificing the human body for that of a mobile suit. But it's not IBO, which still has to abide by bright colors and wild hair and the usual Gundam tropes that it then inverts. Thunderbolt just doesn't play by any of those rules, not even those of its own continuity. Based on the manga by Yasuo Otagaki, the two Onie series, considered seasons 1 and 2, have been compiled into the two movies December Sky and Bandit Flower. First, December Sky. In the ruins of Side 4 during this alternate one-year war, a unit of Zeon lab rats called the Living Dead control the area, taking potshots through the ruins to the weakened Federation forces, specifically Side 4's subdivision known as the Moor Brotherhood. When all the higher-ranking MS pilots are killed, an ace called Io Fleming takes the full armor Gundam, a different one from mainline UC's full armor Gundam, a proposed RX-78-2 upgrade, and hunts down the Living Dead top sniper, Daryl Lawrence. Problem is, Daryl is testing an ace unit of his own, the Psycho Zaku. Bandit Flower shoots forward to the aftermath of the One-Year War, where both Io and Daryl are now on Earth, and both Zeon remnants and the Federation are fighting a third party, a new type-controlled cult shot off from the Federation, who are now demanding autonomy and have access to both Federation MS and Zaku's. The story ends on a cliffhanger, and as far as we know, we won't be getting any adaptations of the rest of the manga, which is ongoing. But that's just the plot. These aren't really plot-driven stories, and to be honest, I'm not sure what character development there is outside of the plot itself and what it demands. In all honesty, it's an atmosphere study? Yeah, something like that. We're going with that. It's an atmosphere study about what the one-year war would really look like, about what MS Combat would look and feel like, not to mention what it sounds like. Honestly, between those three senses, there is not a single Gundam series to rival it. And it's not just the dichotomous jazz pop soundtrack or the beautifully clawed art style or the incredibly detailed mobile suits. It's the sound design carrying the sense of scale, the noisiness of every aspect of space combat, even down to just chilling on the ship. The noise of Thunderbolt changed the way I viewed the relationship between sound design and score. They really are two halves building to one whole, and sometimes it's the dissonance, the disagreement, that adds realism, and in doing so sucks you in. Both sides are equally important because your ears are hearing both, you know? And it seems like so many movies and series forget about sound design in favor of just having a strong score, especially blockbuster movies. Marvel! Which seem to think that a pompous orchestra is a good substitute for punches, explosions, the revving of a good strong engine, the background noise of a party or a mechanic's shop, the pissy hissing of steam, the whining and crunching of metal, snapping of bone, alarms, gunfire. They end up falling flat, and so the only way to get the cinematic feel is to watch them in theaters with the biggest sound systems imaginable that force you into feeling it. And yes, that's wonderful, and cinematic, cinematic, get it? But I just watched Thunderbolt with earbuds in bed and got that feeling stronger in me than most movies, especially recent ones. Of course, maybe it's the grit of the animation, the busy, lived in environments, and the more realistic depictions of life in combat and space. Characters in their spaces aren't devoid of life. They have radios taped to dashes, pictures of loved ones, trophies, messy beds, grime and rust on the walls, buttons on their shirts and jackets. Their expressions have nuance. If these were actors, they wouldn't just be eye candy. They'd be the best actors Sunrise's budget could have found, and possibly more obscure. The kind of actors that get snubbed out of Oscars. And that's not even mentioning the MS in combat. The environments of Thunderbolt, such as the titular Thunderbolt sector, are some of the most hostile, terrifying places imaginable. The horror of space debris shooting lightning bolts of static that can destroy mobile suits is one of the most bizarrely specific and absolutely wonderful environments ever. Not to mention how it's a minefield of debris that all mobile suits must be modified with a crazy number of shields and fabric coatings and manipulator arms just to cross. It's a ruined place that brings more ruin, and it's gorgeous in a gross way. MS combat is unforgiving, even by UC standards. Limbs get torn off, armor's punctured, heads are knocked loose, stuff explodes. There's any number of ways even your own suit can kill you. You can't be sluggish, or weak, or stupid, or pilot anything less than a Gundam. Unless you're a smart drummer and chronic thrill seeker like Io Fleming, and you know there's only one type of sonic backdrop to such a place: free jazz. There's something sick to the whole thing, honestly. The kind of thing you can't sum up nicely, and that's probably why this sounds like a ramble, even though it's scripted. Thunderbolt is a sick work of art wearing a thin Gundam shaped mask, and as all iterations of the series go on, be that manga or movie or anime, you see the mask start to slip. Even the story is a mask, the premise is a mask. As I've said before, this is not the UC we know. The busier, more advanced tech is the main giveaway. The story doesn't follow Gundam beats. Child soldiers are a joke in combat. We don't get the theatric battles of words between dueling pilots, and most importantly, it never seems to end. There's no finality. There's no point where the story feels like it can rest. You always have to keep moving. Things never wrap up nicely or in a big way. But what if? This is an alternate universal century, right? What would events like the Grips conflict, the many Neo-Zeons, Mafti, or even the more distant future of the Crossbone Vanguard and Zanskar conflict look like? Honestly, I'd like to see it, and it'd kill multiple birds with one stone for a lot of fans. Gundam fans want to see the original 79 series reanimated in a more detailed, modern art style. I personally would like to see Tomino's Gundam light novels adapted instead. And with this, why not both? And let's go further. Why not make the Zeta where autistic girl boss Camille Bidan kills himself in the end? Or the double Zeta where the schoolboy hijinks contrast even harder against the dark reality of Haman Karn and her Neo Zeon? Why not make the Char's counterattack the Nightingale and the Hainu tearing each other to shreds, or failing to stop the colony drop and confining humankind to space forever? Or, I suppose, keeping with Gundam Thunderbolt's narrative style, we'd see it all through the eyes of the people on the fringes, fighting the bloodiest battles in the most hostile environments, instead of the most important ones. Either way, we need a season 3.